My name is Mark Latimer. I am here at Midas Letter RAW, downtown Toronto, with my co-host Ed Milewski.
Mark, welcome to the set.
Thanks, really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So it's Friday.
First week of September has just flown by.
I know, can't believe it.
I know, it's no Labor Day weekend, is it?
Short week. I think people are, well, it's Friday,
Yeah.
so feel pretty good about that.
Yeah.
Interesting week.
Yeah, and you know, right off the top, you know, two or 3 days ago, say 3-4 days ago, silver up every day, and then all of a sudden Trump, I guess, said something yesterday morning, and so silver's probably given back 5-6% or a dollar an ounce, maybe a little more.
Just takes a tweet.
Monster moves. I mean, if you're a commodity trader or a hedger, and you know you're trying to figure out what to do, it's got to be. But the volatility seems to be, you know, everywhere now, right? Things are moving crazy moves.
It's all over the place.
Yeah.
What to do?
So let's take a look at the S&P.
Yeah.
And you know we got a jam-packed show coming up as.
Excellent show.
Yeah. Maybe we'll just say what's on the show first, and then.
Yeah.
So what is on the show today?
Let's pull it up. We've got. We're going to start off with some news.
Okay.
With our very own Alessandro Bruno, who will be delivering that. And then after, I'm going to have a short interview with him. We're going to be looking at geopolitical update.
That'll be interesting.
And then we have an awesome guest who you had a chance to speak with a little earlier.
Johnny Kovacevic. Yeah.
Big Johnny.
Yeah, he's all over the internet, and he's very passionate about, you know, the price, the copper, and the electrification of the world.
I just bought his Audible book, My Electrician Drives a Porsche.
Yeah.
And started to get into that. And interesting insights. I love a lot of the conversation around how copper's being used in everything, but it's not being reflected in the market, at least yet. So
maybe have something to do with the trade war, right? But we're gonna hear that in-depth interview coming up shortly.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so let's take a look at a few markets today, and let's see if we can't figure out you know what's going on.
What do you want to
here.
look at first, Ed?
Well, let's look at the S&P 500. I'm just databases are just loading up here.
Okay.
And I know the market's up a little bit. It was up big yesterday. It looks like it's starting to break out of a pattern. And here we go. So there's the S&P. And this is a 3-month chart. And what I'm going to do is just
give it a little doodle.
Yeah.
Except that clicker.
Except that, wait a minute here. I think I might.
What do you got there?
There we go. Here we go. Okay. So the other day I made a point that there's a line here of, you know, we were bumping up here. You know, this was a line of resistance. Yesterday we broke through it.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So here we are through this line, and now this is the all-time high right here. Believe it or not, the all-time high. Let's say 5 weeks. This is 3 months. So yeah, about 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, all-time high. We're not far from there, and now we're here. Another green candle today, up slightly, but you get the sense with all the shit that's going on in the world, and there's a lot of, you know, geopolitical issues, negative interest rates, all these things, and yet the market's grinding higher. You know,
Do you think we're going to get back up to that high?
Yeah, well, it's not far away. It's right in our sights. Like we could be there Monday afternoon.
Yeah, it looks like it's entering a new box for sure.
Well, so you know what? Well, it'll be interesting to see though if it gets here and then stops, because you know that means there may be a little. And again, I'm just say it could be a double top. So the S&P up a little bit. Okay. Now let's just take a quick look at at gold, just to see how gold's acting. And I can get that up here very quickly.
Yeah, I took a look at.
Yeah, you know, with negative interest rates and the banking sector, they can't raise rates if rates keep going negative. So here we are. And now, you know, we've been sort of trending higher. We've been trending higher, you know, and sometimes it's hard to put in perspective the percentage moves, but that's clearly, you know,
It's heading in the right direction.
yeah, lower left, upper to the upper right.
What you
right?
want to see.
And then these Bollinger Bands they're wide here, they narrow, and then they get wider again, and then it looks like they're narrowing a bit. Now we're right down to the lows of yesterday. Yesterday
Right.
the price of gold got smashed. Today we've gone down there and tested it. We're almost oversold here very quickly. I think we're about the RSI, the Relative Strength Index, is around 50. So gold, while this market's broken out a bit, has retreated, which probably makes a bit of sense. These things don't, you know, they don't move in lockstep necessarily,
Right.
but they are connected, obviously. And silver, I think, is probably, you know, following gold. So it'll be interesting.
What do you think we're going to see next week?
Well, I think we're going to see more volatility, like big moves. But I do believe, and I'm just going to wipe this out here, and I'm going to put up a longer term chart of the gold, which this is a 10-year chart, and we've talked about this. And not to make it, so gold, that's the basing pattern that took place over 6 years, and there's the bottom,
Right.
and we've broken out of it, right? So that pattern has been breached to the upside.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the most powerful patterns that I would bet on, and you know, we're now in this area here. That's the only time gold's been in this area ever. It's never been, this is the all-time high. We've had some consolidation there. We broke down. Everybody's saying, you know, the sky's falling, get out of gold. Gold, this trend here was breached, and we've been biding time, and for some reason, in the last few weeks, last few months, gold's decided to start going north again.
I like the direction it's moving. Let's cut to the news and hear from Alessandra.
Good.
Here's what's making cannabis headlines this Friday, September the 6th, 2019. CannTrust Holdings is reducing its workforce as a step to bring its operations and procedures into full regulatory compliance and ensuring the company's future. CannTrust reduced its workforce by approximately 180 people, or 20%. This action is expected to result in an annual cash savings of about $9 million. The majority of the affected employees were in cultivation and customer service support roles. Canopy Rivers has received final approval to list its Class A subordinate voting shares on the Toronto Stock Exchange. The subordinate voting shares will begin trading on the TSX at the opening of the markets on September 9th, 2019, and will continue to trade under the ticker symbol RIV. Trulieve Cannabis announced that in response to the catastrophic damage left behind by Hurricane Dorian in the Bahamas and the southeastern United States seaboard, the company has launched a statewide relief effort to help the affected areas as they recover from the storm's wake. Through its established statewide distribution system, Trulieve will be accepting donations of necessary and critical supplies at each of their 31 Florida locations. These items will be distributed directly to those in need in partnership with third-party relief organizations. Eve & Co. announced that its wholly owned subsidiary, Natural Med Co., has entered into a third binding, non-exclusive supply agreement for the sale of dried cannabis to a German importer and distributor. The German distributor has agreed to purchase a minimum of 25 kilograms of dried cannabis per month for the first 2 months and a minimum of 100 kilograms per month for the next 22 months. The company expects to commence shipments subsequent to the anticipated approval by Health Canada of the company's 780,000 square feet greenhouse expansion. High Tide announced that 2 Canna Cabana retail stores located in Calgary and Vegreville both received their first deliveries of cannabis products from Alberta Gaming Liquor and Cannabis and has begun selling recreational cannabis for adult use. The company currently has 23 branded Canna Cabana locations selling recreation cannabis products across Canada, inclusive of the new stores. Planet 13 Holdings announced that the Cannabis Cannabis Museum has entered into a lease with Planet 13 to be part of the Las Vegas Cannabis Entertainment Complex. Cannabis previously operated a 10,500 square feet cannabis-themed immersive art museum in Las Vegas, featuring more than 20 unique cannabis-inspired installations that celebrate the art, culture, and history of the medical and recreational cannabis experience. Fivida Holdings has launched a direct store delivery program to place its beverages in individual stores and local chains. Distribution partners are now operating in California, Nevada, Colorado, Texas, Pennsylvania, and New York, with contracts currently being negotiated in Florida. Since the initiative was launched approximately 6 weeks ago, all key beverages are now available in stores throughout the greater Los Angeles area and in a regional chain in Colorado. And that's your news for today. For the latest cannabis news, visit the Cannabis Daily on MidasLetter.com.
Hi, this is Mark Latimer with the Midas Letter Live, and I'm here with Alessandro Bruno, who is a geopolitical expert and writer here at the Midas Letter. Thank you for having.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the world. There's a lot happening, especially, maybe let's start with Brexit.
Well, Brexit is just one of the things, of course, that's going on right now. And I want to encourage the viewers to do a lot of homework whenever they hear news, to study, to research, because if they really care about their investments, they have to care what's going on in the world because it affects what happens to their money.
Right.
And if you want to read more about it, I put an article up, I believe it came out on Monday, on the theory of geopolitical risk and why it's important to markets. That's a more theoretical piece. Today, now we can get more into a discussion of particular examples of what you should be looking for right now.
Okay, and you're a risk expert. You
Yes.
ride a motorcycle.
Yes.
It's a Ducati?
Yes, it's a red Ducati.
Okay. Do you have a little story about your Ducati?
Well, I have a story in that you have to, speaking of risks, you have to, if you want to ride a motorcycle and if you want to play the stock market, you have to understand risk because it's always there. So take precautions and don't do what I did, where riding a motorcycle with the rain without a proper jacket with armor in it. I fell.
Okay.
And I was out of service for a couple of months. Like, I was lucky because I fell at a very slow speed. In other words, I didn't risk that much. So if you're not that invested in the stock market, you know, you can afford to take certain luxuries, but otherwise have a major helmet, you know, and armor around you. And the only, in the investment situation, the only armor you can have is information.
So what should people need to know right now?
Well, we are entering a very interesting fall and early winter. I think the next 3 or 4 months are going to be full of events that could shake the markets, and it's important to know how to ride these events.
Let's talk about China.
Well, China, we can talk about Brexit too, but China is the one that I think is on the minds particularly of American investors and Canadian, because we are affected. First of all, I don't think we're going to have too much trouble from China, because the only thing Trump has achieved really in the past 2.5 years, as he's going into an election, is prop up the stock market. The Dow is at well above 26,000. Every time it comes down, it bounces back up. That's his legacy. He's not going to let that market slip too much and permanently, because if he does, he's done. There's nothing else to show.
Right.
Infrastructure.
Pretty important to his platform.
Yes, it's essential. And it's his fault too, because the infrastructure he promised isn't there, nor are the big international deals. However, China there are optimistic rumors that China and the US will reach a deal, and Trump, the pressure is actually on Trump to make that deal right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the Hong Kong protests are waning, or at least the media has stopped paying as much attention as it was to these protests, and frankly, they were presenting only one side of the protest, and perhaps not even the most important one, being the focus on the extradition law that somehow the students were upset about. The government has formally rescinded that law completely. It had already given into the students, saying we will review it and we won't put it on the agenda. But now the governor of Hong Kong has officially, formally scrapped it. Will these protests continue to go on? I think they will, in some ways, demonstrating the fact that there's something else behind the anger than a simple extradition law, which actually made quite a lot of sense.
So you do a lot of research. What's really going on?
Yes. Well, the big problem in Hong Kong is the big problem that's affecting societies in the West in general. And Hong Kong is in many ways part of the West. It was long a British-controlled colony, and it's part of the China two states within one system, or two systems within one state. So it lives as a Western country, and it has a similar malaise: income inequality, income distribution. Simply put, the students, the young generations, do not have it as good as their parents, and much less than their grandparents. Housing costs are way beyond their reach.
So affordability is gone.
Affordability is gone.
Can't live in Hong Kong.
No, you can't. But also, what kind of jobs are available in Hong Kong? And considering that at the time of Hong Kong's joining China, after the British colonial period ended officially, I believe it was 1997, Hong Kong accounted for 40% of Chinese GDP. 40%.
Wow.
And Hong Kong was not only a financial powerhouse, it was an industrial powerhouse. And in some ways it got even richer after that political shift following the British release, as it became China's banking center. It was where the Chinese traded their yuan, and where they did all their finance and transactions and all kinds of trade. What's happened then, though, is that the Chinese have continued to develop every year, growing. So there are now many cities in China that can compete with Hong Kong,
right,
to the point where GDP from 40% of Chinese total now accounts for 2%. It's really, in percentage terms, what is that? 2,000% less, or if not more, reduction. And so in economic terms, these students are now living the reality full on. They're going to graduate into a world that is unrecognizable.
So is that
to them.
who the protests are largely filled with?
That's the students.
Younger generation?
The protests in Hong Kong are very distinctly youth protest. Some of the older people, in fact, are not have protested on the other side in favor of the government. So there is a generational gap, how will that be solved? China is continuing to grow. The biggest rival to Hong Kong is right across the strait. It's called Shenzhen. That's where Huawei and Tencent have their headquarters. So Hong Kong's importance to the Chinese economy is continuously waning.
So how do you think it's going to play out?
Well, I think that the protests are going to fade. For one thing, the school year is back, so the students will have less time.
Okay.
It's simple, practical.
Good timing?
Yes.
Yeah.
And also, I think with the move from the governor to repeal the law, they're going to have to reorganize and rebuild a campaign, because of course there are various media interests behind the students as well. There's a Chinese a Hong Kong billionaire, very anti-China, who's quite close to members of the Trump administration, like Bolton, the security advisor. So we need to take a look at some of the media figures and the architect of this, how they shaped this revolt, and presenting it as some kind of pro-democracy movement. The big threat was that China was going to send in the tanks.
Right.
Very far from anything China would do right now. They have all the cards. But that would be destroying their plans. They need to be presented as a quiet, almost a victim.
Right. Well, we'll have to keep watching it. Let's change gears here for a second and flip back to Brexit.
Okay. Another thing that people need to pay attention to closely beyond the headlines. So what we have now, with the British Parliament closed, Boris Johnson embarrassed in some way. His own brother, quit as MP. And in other words, why is Johnson so embarrassed? Well, he was saying that he would do any Brexit deal possible, hard, soft, or whatever it takes.
Right.
But now, with Parliament closed, he's found out how difficult this situation really is. And the most likely thing we're going to see is a British election happening much sooner than expected, perhaps before the year is over. Who will win that election? Well, you'd be surprised, but the bankers in London are not rooting for the Conservatives. They're rooting for Labour. The very Jeremy Corbyn, the very man who plans to tax property owners and limit their holdings. So to the very man who would put Britain under a very old-style Labour Party administration. So the bankers are saying, or at least the logic to observe is, a Conservative win would push Brexit without a deal. So it would make it very difficult for pound sterling and bring the value of the British pound, the one thing that they have, their real economic power, it would sink the pound. In order to support the pound, they say we need a soft Brexit only with a deal, or perhaps another Brexit referendum. So, and the Labour Party would probably be more open to that. The Conservatives, to win, would have to ally themselves with Nigel Farage's party, which wants a deal, wants simply to get out of the European Union at all costs. So, of course, apart from all that, with Brexit, London, which has been the financial center of the European Union for years now, would lose that status. There are many European capitals already biting at the bit, to replace London. Frankfurt, Paris, Milan. Already we've seen a hemorrhage of financial institutions and offices and experts moving away from London, but Brexit, particularly a hard one, would really end the city, the famous city, the quarter in London, the financial center, demise. So we'd have a loss of, and what Britain's economy has been so focused on finance in the past 30 years,
Right.
that it would be a real hard blow to the UK. So this is going to cause some instability in the markets. We have the Hong Kong situation. We need a deal in China, but that is softening. And then there are more issues that have been ignored by the media. Perhaps there's simply too much going on. We have a potential conflict between Israel and Lebanon brewing these days. There have been some drone wars in the past couple of weeks. And in some ways, I think the Americans have realized that attacking Iran would be political suicide for Trump.
Right.
Because if you look at Iraq, that was supposed to be a cakewalk. Look how long, what kind of effects that had, including ISIS. Iran would be an absolute disaster.
Yeah.
Because it's a much different situation.
Well, maybe we'll save the conversation about Iran for a later segment. Appreciate your insight, Alessandro. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And we'll join this conversation again soon.
Thank you.
Okay. No, I wasn't.
Yeah. We're back.
So, a lot going on in the world, isn't there?
Yeah, you know what, this geopolitical stuff, I don't follow it that closely, but I'm starting to think more and more. You know, I should. I mean, China released some numbers a couple days ago.
Right.
And, they're thinking China's slowing down. Well, they were good numbers, and the price of oil jumped $2 a barrel like that. And then the next day it was even up again, and then I see the inventories are down, so oil's moved from $53 a barrel to, $57. I mean, this is all important stuff, and if the price of oil gets going too high, it's bad for everything else.
Right.
So it's always a fine balancing act between what do you want? Because the more you want one thing, then you want something else. Well, this is not good.
Let's talk about what people want, and that's marijuana. Let's
look at the Midas Letter indices.
Okay.
So I'm gonna put those up, and
you got them there?
Yeah, I got them somewhere, but I X'd out of the. There we go. I'll get them. Won't take me long.
Also mention our sponsor, Halo Labs.
Yeah,
HaloCanna.com. Check them out. We'll be looking at Halo, but let's look at the indices first. What's the Midas Letter index look like?
Yeah,
Okay,
the big index. We've got that up here. That's the one you see right there.
Okay.
And that, you know what? Look, this thing's up 6.26% today. That's a monster move. So, you know what? We've come down for 2 or 3 months straight down. It looks like May, June, July, August, September. Almost 4 months from the end of beginning of May, from about the 12,500 level down to 7,000, just under 7,500. Okay, and now we're turning up. And I think when we look at the weed chart, we're going to see that because weed is such a big component of that index,
right,
that there's some similarities, especially in this bottom move down here, which I can't draw on this.
So they're following each other.
Okay, let me try it. Let me try and I got a voice. I got a little angel talking to me here. You think we can?
What's that angel telling you?
Holy smokes!
Hope you're listening to the angel and not the devil.
So there's definitely a trend there, and it looks like we were oversold. You're extremely oversold, and now we're bouncing. And I think this is going to basically the weed chart mirrors this chart. So the big marijuana index is definitely is improved dramatically. This Midas Letter Small Cap Cannabis Index, which I'll click on here as soon as I get rid of this chart. It's up 0.7%. The Midas Letter Canada Venture Cannabis Index up 2.5%. And the CSE Canadian Cannabis Index up 4.6. So let's just see where the some of the action is here. Well, that's the full screen. Now I'm in big trouble.
A lot of green today.
Yeah, well look at that, look at that candle here. Like,
Yeah.
this action here. Yeah. Yeah, I want to click my pen. Big move. I'm going to take a look at. I'm going to go up and use the other screen to get weed up here, while we're doing this.
What's going on?
That's what I want to know.
What is going on with weed?
So my problem right now is I forget how to get to. Just a minute. Yeah. So. Maybe the control tower can put up the weed chart here. Get up the weed. Yeah, get up the. Is that the weed chart? Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I must have locked out of that website inadvertently.
Don't worry about it, Ed.
Thank you. Okay, weed. Let's go with weed.
Our viewers will forgive you.
Here we go.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So this really should be looked at. It looks to me now, weed is now embarking on a pretty good move. So we've had that. We tried to go higher, a bit of a toppy, and then for two to 3 months, almost in a pretty vicious. But then something happened in here. I can't remember the exact thing that caused this, but there was a gap down and serious. I can't remember when Bruce Linton was asked to step down, but in any event, we got down so low that the RSI back in here was down to 20, and now
Down to 20.
well, if you look down in here, not the stock, the RSI.
Yeah.
But since then we've moved up a good 20%, maybe a little more, maybe 22%. So what does this say? You know what? We've been hit so hard that I would have to say that now that we're trending, we've had 3 or 4 or 5 days now where we're up. Today we're up $1.60. The index looks like it's rolled over. Mm-hmm. No one's talking about it yet. So I'm guessing that the sector has some room to go. So let's take a look at a few others. Let's take a look at a buy. I mean, obviously, the way I think is, why would I buy it here when I could have bought it here?
Yeah.
But that's probably a loser's mentality. You really want to buy with momentum behind you.
Yeah.
And
at least a little momentum, and it's showing there.
Yeah. It is. So let's look at some of the other big ones.
Sure. Who do you want to look at next?
Well, I'm going to Liberty Health.
Sure.
I don't think that's a big one, but we can still look at it.
Nothing wrong with taking a look.
Let's take a look. What's the ticker?
Liberty.
LHS on what exchange?
CSE.
Yeah. Wow. Look at this. So here again, we've seen the steep sell-off.
Yeah.
Here. And then it sort of accelerates when it rolls over like that. You always want to see, whenever things accelerate from an already entrenched trend, mm-hmm. you could argue that we're getting close to the end of the move, because usually the selling picks up and accelerates because people are freaking, right?
Right.
So and we saw here the bottom, and now we've moved from 36 cents to 53. And I'm going to put up Namaste too, because Namaste has had all kinds of moves. or is extremely volatile. That's what I really want to say. Namaste. Look at this one. This is okay. Here we go. So now Namaste was up to $3 here. This is a year ago.
Right.
Part of the real trick here in doing all this,
Yeah,
this
what are the
chart work,
tricks?
you don't want to press the wrong button at the wrong time, because one of us may get ejected into outer space.
Oh yeah.
So
Trap doors in here. Fall out of my chair.
Look at this. You get a rally, a counter rally, which is virtually nothing. You get a counter rally and then a little counter rally. But this does look like it's the rate of descent is slowing. And sure enough, look at this.
It looks almost flat.
It back in here, it started flattening out. I think it got to 38 cents, if I'm not mistaken. And yesterday it hit 70. So 38 to 70 is like, 20 cents on 40 cents, which is 50%. So this thing has moved 50%, very short period of time. Now,
What does it all mean, Ed?
what does it all mean? That there's still a rally, but if you're in here, way up here, and you're down, and if you're waiting to come back, it does seem as though there are rallies, but the rallies are losing steam. They don't seem to have the. And let me just X out of this and get this out of here. Now let's look at it. Look at where 2-year chart of Namaste. Look at this move from virtually nothing, 20 odd cents, to $4, and this is only about 2 months.
Wow.
You can imagine if you owned 1 million shares down here, and you could sell. You could have made. The question is, could you have seen this move?
What happened after? Or that?
Well, that move. I mean, you
That
had that
initial
move, yeah, and then all the money that was made there gets. And this is, I'm talking like a. When you know what distribution is. Distribution is when the sort of smart money is selling,
Right.
and accumulation is when the smart money is buying. So the accumulation occurred way before this.
Yeah.
And then you've got if you're in here, you can sell all you want in here, right?
And you're still fine.
You're still making tons of money,
Yeah.
tons. But if you're loading the truck and you don't sell, and then certain levels get breached, and here we are, and here we are, and again these rallies. This rally is huge. This is not so huge. This is a pretty big one. Smaller, and we got a little one here. I mean, look, this isn't this. I say this isn't really science. This is art. Like you got to know when to hold them. You got to know when to fold them.
So, as the poker player, what's your call?
Yeah, the sector. I
Fold
think,
them or hold them?
Well, right now, I'd say if you've got a good fundamental company in this space that's generating revenues and starting to generate EBITDA, in other words, positive cash flow, whatever accounting terminology you want to use. Yeah, okay, but if your revenues aren't showing up, what's that telling you? Like, hey, because if you don't bring any money coming in, the money keeps going out.
Yeah.
Sooner or later,
Show will be over, right?
You got to raise more money, and if you can't raise that money, then what do? You get
Your options are limited.
Yeah, the stock gets halted. And I noticed
People lose confidence, and you're down for a
let's
rough
take
ride.
Weed MD announced yesterday or the day before that they're raising $10 million by way of a debenture. Stock got halted. Weed MD is a southwestern Ontario producer of marijuana outside, I believe, and inside. They're doing a great job. But, they decided to raise some money. I mean, they're doing a good job. They're raising money because they can, I guess, right?
Right.
Some companies can't raise money right now in this space, or they're having a difficult time. We saw it with a few others. But I want to put up, I'm going to put up Weed MD.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Yeah, let's take a look. So here we go.
MD.
This is a, we've had Keith Merker here on the show quite a few times, and you know, it's done well. It got up to about $2-3 here, I guess. This is you know, back at beginning of 2018, so probably 8 months ago, 9 months ago.
Okay.
And it's been, you know, back and forth here. Got a little dicey here because it breached that sort of level, but recovered nicely. But you know, and again, I'm just looking at this. This high is below this high,
Right.
and in here they decided to make it, you know, raise some more money, and their revenues they're growing. Stock is backed off from about the $1.60 level, which was, you know, got this $1.70, $1.80 in here, $1.60ish, and then you know, right now we're, you know, 147. Doing a great job. Good balance sheet, et cetera, et cetera. We'll look at Halo, our sponsor.
Sure. HaloCanada.com. For those of you that are on a computer.
Halo Canada is the website, right?
Yeah, Halo Canada is the website.
And it's HALO on the...
HALO.
Here we go. You know, it was up to 80 cents. But what you want to do is, like, it's clearly been in a downward move here, but that corresponds with the downward move in the whole sector.
Right.
But lately, it seems to have found a lot of support here in the 40 cent, 41 cent level, and it, you know, from everything that I've seen and you know, when Karen speaks, the CEO, they've got a lot of initiatives and that are going to start generating revenue. Expect revenues to ramp here quite rapidly, and they're doing some things in South Africa, out in Lesotho, which is surrounded by South Africa. You know, it looks interesting. It looks interesting, and again, if you start generating serious revenues, like I believe the one in Florida,
Okay.
they got 31 dispensaries.
Wow.
And the lady that runs that company has been on the show and was interviewed by Nika Domi, our good friend Nika Domi, who will probably be on the show here soon. Kim Rivers, and what was the ticker for that company again? Was it
Which one?
TRUL? I'm gonna put that up. TRUL on this. Thank you. Now this is one of the companies that they look upon, as you know, it's doing everything right. Well, doing everything right, but look at this. Now that we don't need a 2-year chart, so we're going to put up a 1-year chart. Well, I'll leave this up for now. But look at this. It came out in here, skyrocketed, and I'd have to look at that. That's straight up. I mean, that's not sustainable.
You don't see that.
Yeah, and then down in here, a counter rally down to here, but this bottom's holding.
What is that bottom?
That's around 950.
950?
Yeah. So again, and here it is, near the lower range, and yet this is considered a great company in space. I think we're gonna switch gears here and here talk to Gianni here, and
Yeah. Let's move over to that interview with Gianni.
Johnny Kovacevic. Joining me now, Johnny Kovacevic.
Bingo.
CEO of Copper Bank. Copper is near and dear to my heart. Electrification of the world. You know a lot about it. I've seen you on the internet. You're extremely passionate. Look at this. My electrician drives a Porsche.
Yeah, looks good.
Who's the author? Gianni Kovacevic. There you go.
I love the copper foil. The Achilles heel of the global
I'm going to melt
economy.
this down and no. So why the delay in the price of copper? I'm not saying there's a delay. I'm saying it looked like we thought we were going to see copper move maybe a year ago, right?
Yeah, until June of last year, and that's when Donald Trump put in that first tariff on to China.
Okay.
And
Sure.
you have to look at this pragmatically, Ed. let us pretend for a moment, and I like to make this colorful for your viewers. You know,
Sure,
we're going to talk about junior mining and all these things.
Love the enthusiasm, love the...
But let's pretend for a moment that our family makes copper cable. We're in the business of fabricating and manufacturing copper cable, and we've done that for a long time. When have we ever liked high copper prices? Never. Copper piping, anything that's fabricated out of copper, typically they want a margin, they make a product, and the lower that input price is, the better things are. What they hate is a spike in that input material, which is why it's in their best interest to smooth these prices out.
Right.
Who's the price setter? You can't even count them. There's hundreds of thousands of people that manufacture things made out of copper.
Right.
The price setter is the speculator. And there's an unholy alliance that takes place between these guys because the speculator, they're making a margin, they're clipping coupons. And the trade has been short the global economy, recession's coming, short China. And one of those things, amongst a myriad of different mechanisms that they have, has been to go negative on copper. And we saw that. June of 2018, copper was pushing $3.30 a pound 3 times. Trade tariff comes in, copper goes to $2.55 a pound. And who celebrated the most? Everyone making copper cable, everyone making copper piping. Fantastic. Not only did many of these people stop buying copper if they had excess inventory because things were going to get negative, I will suggest to you some of them might have sold some of their inventory, exacerbate the problem. But what happens when you actually run out of copper, or if they resolve this trade tension?
Right.
That unholy alliance, that breaks down. Because all of a sudden, these guys, they say, you know what, we're long. They take the slack out of the system, and not only say, and we're not selling to you anymore. And now you have all these thousands of fabricators that, logically speaking, are going to have to pay more for that product. In this case, we're talking about copper. That is coming, as my friend Robert Freeland frequently says, and I'll plagiarize it, coming to a theater near you. Not years down the road, this is coming. They're going to resolve this trade tension, and even if they don't, we get back to business as usual. You know, the world's not going to stop because, as you and I both know, and we talked about before taping, electrification. The whole world is going towards this trend.
Automobiles, everything, right? And you know, the low-hanging fruit has been mined. You hear now more and more the cost of building a mine, and it's changing on the go. You know, they're saying, well, we were going to start this thing, but now it's not going to happen for a few more years. It seems as though we're in a state of deficit now, aren't we? Like,
we have the last 2 years been in deficit.
And it's only going to get exacerbated.
Well, it is. And how do you grade a copper deposit? There's many ways, but of course the big one, the poster child, is grade. Grades have fallen in half in the past 15 years.
So what's a good grade now when you talk about, is it 0.5%?
It used to be 1% copper. And then 20 years ago, if you had a deposit that was 0.5, that's 0.5% copper,
right.
You didn't even care about it, you threw it away.
Right.
That is the grade. The future grade of the copper mining industry is going to be not even 0.5, in fact it's 0.4, 0.35. And those projects, particularly if they're not in areas that have a ton of copper mining infrastructure, power, water, workforce, all these kind of things, you need to pay for that. And not to get into too much copper mining engineering, but a ton of that rock has to be economic, and it's not. You don't have to waste your money doing a feasibility study. At today's copper price, $2.65 a pound, it is not economic because the grade of these 0.5 and 0.4% copper deposits, that rock is only worth $20, $30. Not a
you know, 3 or 4 days ago, and maybe this is a bad question, but 3 or 4 days ago, it looked like copper was touching 249. And then China came up with some number and said, you know, things aren't as bad as economic number, and oil shot up $2 and copper shot up, and it's moved up 10 or 15 cents. But we're still going we're just sort of jostling for position here, aren't we? Like, but there's going to be a day we're going to wake up and copper's going to be up 20, 30 cents 3 or 4 days in a row.
I think that will happen, and it's going to be because of probably one big event or a series of events. Usually what tips the scales in the copper business is because one of those 10 or 15 large copper mines has an act of God or something. It shuts down one day to the next. Oops! All of a sudden, what already is a tight market becomes imbalanced. Everyone panics, and you have to go and find copper metal somewhere else. Or it's going to be some relief on this trade tariff thing and everyone realizes the world is not going into a calamity, even if you have a recession. Recessions don't last for 14 years. They last for 2 quarters.
They're sharp,
or
they're
3 quarters.
fast.
Look what happened in 09, people.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
if that happened and it was a V and we came out of it, you know,
Oh, that was like that was a 100-year flood, right? Like
the world will go on.
The world blinked back then when Bear Stearns and those companies went under.
Yeah. But even look at a different scenario. Let's say that we do go into a calamity, and it's a long, because all the gold bug guys say that they built too much debt and all this zero rate interest and everything that's going on in the world. That's not the point. I gave you guys a quote that's really important. You have to focus on, you're looking at it, but you're not looking at it the right way. We have today, as we speak, only 19% of final energy is electrification. It's going to 50% in the next about 30 years. And the enabler of that is going to be copper. The CAGR growth rate from copper, even with all else can happen, trade war, whatever you want, we are actually decarbonizing the energy mix. It's happening. People, it may be starting slow because they're still rolling out the models of cars and we're still building the generation capacity to not be coal, but to be wind and solar or gas peaker powers to augment wind and solar, because they want to utilize more electrical transportation. And this, in the course of 3 and 5 and 10 years, big line items. And it's all going to be run by copper. You need to focus at that. That's what's really taking place. Don't lose any sleep at night because of the demand of copper. Win, lose, or draw, there will be demand growth on a CAGR basis, and we are not building copper mines. This is already happening, and it's becoming like a pincer. You don't have to wait years. In my view, you have to wait quarters.
Yeah. I know, and I think I hope I didn't say this on the show already, but the head of Codelco was saying that 3 of their mines need 280, 290, and that's they're right in the middle of, like, they produce it better than anybody else, right?
Best in the world, largest copper production entity in the world. It's effectively the Chilean government. The world's largest publicly listed copper company is Freeport-McMoRan, but Codelco is the world's largest copper company. They need to invest in excess of $30 billion for the same copper yield, because grades are falling lower. Remember, if we're mining 30 million tons a year to have a certain yield, in the future, grade falls. Now we have to mine 40 million tons for the same copper metal yield.
If they were still using, if they still had, we don't have copper pennies here anymore, but we used to have copper pennies, what would be the amount of copper in a penny? Like, do you have any idea what it'd be worth today?
It used to be copper.
Yeah,
then
it used to be.
Then it became an alloy, and now we've abandoned the penny altogether.
Right.
Americans still have their pennies. So that's small potatoes. Copper, 75% of all the copper that's fabricated every single day goes into something to conduct,
energy.
Transfer, utilize electrical energy.
Now, what
and a little bit for piping, air conditioning, and other things, roofing and what have you.
You know how they used to put the coins in the water in Rome and kill bacteria?
Yeah.
So they say now hospitals should be built with copper alloy in the door handles and on all the counters. So there's because everything that comes into contact with copper, 99% of all bacteria.
Antibacterial. And that's conclusive. There have been many studies for those that understand
and
this
silver
trend.
too, right?
Silver's fantastic too, but for copper, people are wondering, should it be a pure copper plate on the hospital, or the arms of the bed and the door handle, or could we just spray a coating of something that's got colloidal copper in it? No, it's got to be copper. They've done the studies. If you look at all the different bacteria, you can't cheat there. You got to use real copper, and that's where we're going. That is something that works, and you're going to see hospitals around the world, and that's a whole new demand driver for copper. In fact, for the United Nations sustainability, initiatives, there's 17 of them. Copper plays a starring role in 16 of 17.
Wow. No, it looks like we're coming into the age of copper in earnest. To talk about your company.
Yeah, Copper Bank is something that many of your listeners would be aware of.
Yeah.
And we are now just past Labor Day. We've worked very hard all summer, and we've got a new presentation which you should download. If you've ever invested in a copper company in your life, we've got 10 slides of comparables. The who's who, how much pounds they have, what's their G&A, what's their value, what are the transactions that happened in the last 10 years on a per pound in the ground basis. We've got 10 different slides that show you where Copper Bank sits. Now, we don't just tell people our stock is cheap. We have been consolidating copper development projects for the last 3 years. We have a portfolio of these projects. Market cap is $15 million. And yet again, for our property payments this year, 2 weeks ago, I invested $480,000 at a premium, no warrant, to to pay for all of our property payments, even though we've got one of the lowest G&A to establish pounds, $15 million market cap.
Where are your properties? Are they? I don't know the answer, so I'm asking to know where are they? What countries?
We've always had 3 criteria, and we still have 3 criteria. We're in jurisdictions. Here's our threshold. They have to be in places where our children can work. That's our risk tolerance. They have to be projects that have had a lot of money spent on them. This is a risky business. We understand these projects are not perfect. They may have warts on them, but we have to have at least what's there. Is there a resource? Is there an economic study? So hundreds of millions of dollars would have to be spent on things that we look at, or tens of millions of dollars in our case. And number 3, and this is very important, Ed, I can't eat my shares. I want to monetize them. We don't have golden parachutes. I'm working very hard to monetize the value of my projects.
I understand.
They have to be projects that we believe in our sphere of influence in a normalized market. Will someone want to partner with me or do commerce on these projects so they, the more mature company, can take it to final development? Those are the 3 criteria. We are still looking. This is a buyer's market. It's a bear market. There are things that we are doing advanced due diligence on. It has to make sense. It has to be accretive. And we are like carpenters. We measure 7 times, we cut once. We're very careful.
Sure.
If it's going to be a share issuance, it's either going to be to maintain our portfolio or it has to be highly accretive to the existing shareholder. And I'm the 2nd largest shareholder of the company.
Sure. So where are you? Are you in basically North America?
Where are the best mining jurisdictions in the world? We are in Arizona. It was, for 100 years, Arizona was the largest copper producing jurisdiction in the world until Chile surpassed it. We're in Pinal County, and we're in that famous copper corridor where the 2 major trends, the geology trends of Arizona, intersect. That's at Copper Creek. All of our workers, if it was a mine, would go home at the end of the day. Can't underline how important that is. So that's Arizona. We're in Elko County, Nevada, on private property. So between the Kennecott Bingham Canyon mine and all the famous gold mines of Nevada, we're right in the middle.
Anything in California?
We have nothing in California. So that's Elko County, Nevada, just off the freeway. We've got electricity, we've got crew, we've got infrastructure. That's where that project's located. And our other projects are located on the Alaska Peninsula. That's San Diego Bay and Pyramid. And that would be effectively a 2-hour flight from Anchorage, Alaska, directly on Tidewater on Christmas Day. Do you know what the temperature is there? It's very far south. It's like Prince Rupert on a parallel.
Probably 14 degrees.
5. Very windy, but it's 5 degrees.
It's wind chill.
This is not deep winter like you think of Alaska. This is green.
It's some funny
and
temperature
this is all year
fluctuations.
deep tidewater.
Yeah.
And the project is only 4 kilometers from deep tidewater. Very important when you look at the development of a project like that.
Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I do. I think people that have looked at my book or maybe haven't quite finished it off or haven't started it, it's on audible.com right now. It is not stale dated. All the themes that we talk about are in fact now coming into gear. And I drove across America in an electric car, and there was this big hoopla la, and everyone's going electric, and it's going to be an EV dream. Folks, this takes time, but it is happening. They're building these factories all over the world, including these battery gigafactories, but they still haven't started to procure their metal.
Yeah.
They don't need to buy copper cable yet. That's coming. Where you have this millions and millions of tons of copper is going to be consumed in the battery factories, in the electric car factories that they're building. And this is not a joke. Volkswagen, Mercedes, BMW, they're changing fundamentally at the chassis level how they make a car. This does not take months. This takes 4 or 5 or 6 years.
Right.
And this is all coming to a head. And these cars are going to start rolling off the assembly line in 2020, 21, and beyond. But more importantly for us as copper investors, there's a whole new area of demand where they're going to start buying millions of tons of copper, and that's going to be exacerbated by the people that take final energy usage from 19% to 50%, wind power, solar power, offshore wind power, nuclear power,
you can't get away.
Natural gas.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
It all takes copper. It's all going to run off copper cabling, and we are there with our projects made in the USA to partner with people that want to develop in the future.
Great update. Thanks for coming by.
It's nice to amplify the message.
No, we'll have you back soon, and
When I come to
I'll read
Toronto.
your book. Okay.
Thank you so much, Ed.
Thanks, Johnny.
We'll see you again.
Okay. Thank you very much.
let's talk about Aurora. Recently, your financials, you've more or less delivered on
Here are the
what?
headlines moving markets today.
If you're lucky to buy it 3 days ago at 37 cents,
And I
you
think
get
it has a
pint.
lot to do with some of these smaller names giving really.
Recreational cannabis is here. It's
It's quite dry. So I'm going to eliminate the stocky bits.
Okay, that was a great interview.
Yeah, you know, this guy is so passionate about copper and the electrification of the world. I'm going to read his book.
I said earlier I downloaded on Audible, so I'll be listening to it
Yeah.
probably on the train.
So the marijuana sector looks like it's swinging upwards here.
Does look that way.
Yeah. Will it continue next week? I guess we'll have to come back and find out.
Okay, we'll be looking at it on Monday. We want to talk about one more?
Yeah, let's quickly mention Chiron.
Okay, Chiron.
And you know what? I just lost my connection here.
Okay.
Okay. So where
Do you want to get that connection back, or
You know what? Maybe we'll wait for.
maybe we'll save it for Monday?
We'll save it for Monday.
Yeah,
So
why not?
what time is it?
It's 4:01.
And it's time for.
Time to wrap up. That's our show today. Appreciate you guys joining us, and check out MidasLetter.com. Sign up for our newsletter. Hit the subscribe link. There's a bell if you're on YouTube, and we will see you on Monday. Have yourself
Yeah.
a great weekend. Thanks, Ed. And this
Mark,
has been
nice
fun.
having you aboard. Okay.